Hey, folks, welcome back. Sorry about the issues on my end, but tonight is the Chicago White Sox team preview show. My guest is RJ Lesch. Welcome, RJ.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
We've got both White Sox hats represented tonight. I'm glad I didn't choose the same one. It's like two women wearing the same dress to the Emmys. But yeah, RJ's our guest tonight. RJ's been in the group now for a little bit, and tell us, RJ, how you first became a White Sox fan, and maybe share some early memories of being a fan.
Yeah, I came to baseball late because I was born and grew up in until I was about 9 years old, lived in Colorado, and at that time the Rockies were a little ways in the future yet, so. There was baseball, but it wasn't Major League Baseball. And, I was more of a football fan. So I was a Broncos fan back when the Broncos were terrible. Long story. But it was funny because, people would make fun of you for being a Broncos fan in the early 70s. So it was pretty hilarious. But we moved to Illinois, so my family lived in DeKalb for a while. You probably know where DeKalb and then Rockford are, northern Illinois. So,
yep.
So within screaming distance of Chicago, and you could get the White Sox radio broadcasts at night. And Harry Carey was the broadcaster for the White Sox, as opposed, he later moved over to the Cubs, but. I blame Harry Carey and then Bill Veeck, who bought the team a couple of years after I started following them, for me being a White Sox fan, because they were just the fun team in Chicago. The Cubs at that time were kind of, stuffy and, kind of the old guy, team. The White Sox were like the cool uncle who'd sneak you a beer at the outing, literally. So yeah, they were just a more fun team. And then the Southside Hitmen in 1977, which was a fun team to follow, didn't came in second, and obviously were a 1 year wonder, but they were fun while they lasted. So so those are some of my early memories. Some of my favorite players at the time, Dick Allen was, of course, with them in '74, but they had this great core of young players. Bucky Dent was with them, Brian Downing. I was a Wilbur Wood fan. I've always been a pitching fan, but I always gravitate toward either the extreme power pitchers like Nolan Ryan or the knuckleball pitchers like Wilbur Wood and Phil Niekro. No middle ground for me. So
nice.
But yeah, Wilbur Wood was, he was a horse. He'd go out, pitch every third day, and that was a lot of fun. So,
I've got some, I guess, ties to the White Sox. The one of my mentors, his name is James Hazard. He's a writer. He passed on some years ago, but he was a lifelong White Sox fan. And he'd come at the tail end of his career. He was actually a professor at UW Milwaukee. And when I started working there, we actually got to see each other quite a lot. And he'd come in, we'd talk baseball for it seemed like hours, because there were times when I was working on campus where there were no students because it was summer and it was just kind of a quieter time. He'd sneak in, he'd see that we were slow, and we would just talk White Sox for hours and hours. He actually shared with me, and this is obviously something that you're familiar with. The White Sox were close to moving to Milwaukee in the late 60s.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was 67. It was right after the Braves moved to Atlanta.
Yep.
And, we still had County Stadium. But I'm not sure if casual fans might know that Bud Selig was actually very close to bringing the White Sox to Milwaukee.
Yep.
As a fan of the Sox, would your allegiance have transferred as well to Milwaukee, or would you have then become a Cubs fan at that time?
Well, we didn't move to Northern Illinois until 1974. So by that time, they might have been well entrenched. But my father was from Wisconsin, Port Washington area, which is north of Milwaukee, and he had been a Braves fan as a kid. So I might have gone with the the Milwaukee, whatever they would be called. At that point, I might have done that.
I would have guessed, because the White Sox were an original American League team, that they probably would have kept that team name. I would think, with the White Sox being one of the original 8. But that's interesting that your dad's from Port. I'm actually 3 miles from Port Washington.
Oh wow! Okay, neat.
I'm in Grafton.
They were actually from their farm was outside of a town called Belgium. But
yeah, I actually lived in Belgium in 2016. I bought a house there, and
yeah.
When I graduated high school, my mom wanted to get out of Brown Deer, so she moved to Port Washington. I actually was living in Port Washington in 2005 when I became a father, and then in 2016 I bought a house in Belgium. So that's pretty cool.
That's wild. Yeah, they went to Port Washington High School when he was a kid. So
nice. What memories do you have of the 83 team? Now, I became a fan in 83, and the first postseason baseball I ever saw was the Chicago White Sox against the Baltimore Orioles in the ALCS of 83. Do you have any memories of that particular year?
I was at my freshman year of college, and I was kind of disgusted with professional sports at the time, so I wasn't following it as closely as I might have later. I kind of later in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, I started following it avidly again, but I was kind of in my anti-professional sports mode at that time. But I do remember, because I liked Carlton Fisk when he had been with the Red Sox, and when he moved over to the White Sox, I was pretty happy about that. So that team had Fisk. That team had, Harold Baines, who was one of the good things about the White Sox for a while when they had some of those awful teams in the later mid 80s. But and the pitching that you had Dotson and Lamar Hoyt. That was just a fantastic team, and I remember being really irritated. I'm not as big of a Tony La Russa fan now, but I was really irritated when the White Sox got rid of him as the manager. So,
what year did he leave the White Sox? Was it like 85?
I want to say 85 or 86. I'm going from memory. The older I get, that's a risky thing.
Yeah. I've been to both stadiums, Old Comiskey, New Comiskey. I don't know what they're calling it these days. I think it's Guaranteed Rate Field or
that sounds right.
Something like that. Do you have a preference as to which venue you like seeing games at more?
This is going to sound weird, but I never actually got to a game at Old Comiskey. Even though we were just 60 miles away, just never got there. And then I moved to Iowa and was, by the time I got back to it, they had torn it down and so forth. That's one of my regrets. I wish I'd gone to a game there. I like the new stadium. I don't think it's, it's Wrigley Field. I probably shouldn't say this, but, Wrigley Field's the best stadium, best ballpark I've ever seen. And, when you're in the same town as Wrigley Field, you're going to lose the comparison every day. It's just the way it is. But I don't mind, whatever, Comiskey, White Sox Park, Guaranteed Rate, whatever they're calling it this week. It's actually not too bad of a park. So I like the sculpture area back up there too. That's always fun to walk around.
I only saw Old Comiskey once. I saw an A's game there in I want to say 89, 88, 89. I think it was 89. And I've been to the new one twice. The thing I like about the new one is that it's so close to the freeway because I just see it every time I drive by it. So it's really easy to get to. I love Wrigley, but I hate going to Wrigley because unless I lie and flirt with whoever's managing a Taco Bell that day and say, hey, is it, if I buy a quesarito, can I park here for 4 hours? Parking is like $60.
Right.
I saw Billy Joel. I think a friend of mine who's actually watching tonight, he and I saw Billy Joel at Wrigley. And I think we like without thinking of it, paid $60 for parking and had to walk a little bit. But with the White Sox, I never really had that issue. But I like it too because it's, and this is going to sound like I'm putting it down, and it's actually the opposite. It was the last of the, I guess, you know, a lot of the parks that are beautiful and that I love now. Comiskey was one of the last of the ones that just kind of felt like it was a ballpark, and not like it didn't try to be like a restaurant or you know, a concert venue. It just feels like a ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of miss that. Like living in Milwaukee, as much as I appreciate and love the fact that we have the Milwaukee Brewers and we have a Miller Park and we don't have rainouts, I really miss County Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever get a chance to see a game at County Stadium?
No, but we went to some other event when I was a kid at County Stadium, and I can't remember what it could have been. I just know we were there. I've been to a game at Miller Park. I'll tell you what, I lived in Iowa for probably longer than I've ever lived anywhere, and I'm pretty much converted to minor league parks and the minor league baseball experience. I would rather go to for one thing, less money. You know, you're closer to the game. There's always this. Ooh, I might be watching the next Mike Trout here. You know, take it. You know, so. But I mean, that feels like a ball. Like to your point, it feels like a ballpark when you're in Burlington, Iowa, which with 1,000 people in the stands who all passionately care about the Burlington Bees. You know, for example. That was one of the most fun parks I ever went to was Burlington, Iowa, the Burlington Bees. Went to a lot of games when I lived in Des Moines, the Iowa Cubs. So again, I probably shouldn't say nice things about the Cubs if I'm wearing this hat, but that was the fun thing about the 2016 team was I watched half of those guys come through, you know, AAA, and you know, you could go, wow, I remember when he couldn't hit a curveball, you know. It was just, you know, so there's that minor league experience I'm having more fun with than the major league experience, actually.
I actually am right there with you, and a lot of my friends question me on it, but like I would rather, we have a team, like I said, I'm in Grafton. We have a team in Mequon, which is about 8 miles from here, called the Lakeshore Chinooks.
Mm-hmm.
It's a summer league team. It's actually owned by Robin Yount and Bob Uecker.
Oh.
I can see a game there. The best seat in the house, I think, is like $11. I can get a general admission seat down the line for like $4.
Mm-hmm.
The parking's free. It's right there. I mean, it's so accessible. Food is good and affordable, but I would rather see 10 of those games than one Brewer game because I just love baseball. Like I could watch Little League, high school, college, anything. And, you know, I've got a 15-year-old daughter. I'd rather take her to see, you know, 10 games and have a really good family experience than, you know, pay $20 to park, $50 to eat, $200 for ticket, you know. So,
yeah,
I mean, I'll go to Brewer games, and Wrigley's one of my favorite destinations. But if I had to choose, I would choose minor league. We have a team 20 miles north here called the Sheboygan A's. The best seat in the house is $6. You're like right next to the dugout. $6. The best pretzel nuggets in the world. It just I miss those experiences. Obviously, 2020 was the first year since '82 that I didn't see a ball game, and I'm really missing out on that. As I think everyone that's watching tonight is.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope we get a chance to see a game this year.
Yeah, same here.
Tell me about 2005. 2005 was obviously the year the White Sox won the World Series.
Yeah.
It was the year I became a father. So the first time I was watching a World Series game as a dad is I had my 1-month-old daughter Gracie in my lap watching the White Sox sweep the Astros.
Cool. Well,
so, yeah, tell me about that season for you.
I loved that team. I love that. I'm a fan of pitching, and that was just a great lights out pitching staff, obviously. Funny thing. So I was living in the Des Moines area in Iowa at the time, and we didn't get a lot of the games you could get would be the Cubs, of course, because they were on WGN, and if they decided to show a White Sox game on WGN, that was a treat. But otherwise, I wasn't able to watch them very often. But one of the channels that we could get covered the Twins, and there was a 3-game stretch where in August with the White Sox playing the Twins. So I was like, great, I finally get to see the White Sox on TV as opposed to listening on the radio. Although I love radio baseball, don't get me wrong. But so I watch all 3 games, and they lose all 3 games. And they had like come out of the gate really strong, but they were having these August doldrums. So they lose all 3 games against the Twins. The next day, I go to Chicago to meet up with some friends of mine to watch a game, and they were playing the Yankees in Chicago, and they lose that game. So I decide, okay, I finally get to see them, and they've lost 4 games in a row. So I'm not watching another game the rest of the season. I'll follow them in the paper, etc., but I'm not gonna watch them because it's clearly I have this power, right? I'm enough of an egotist that this is happening because of me, right? So I'm not going to watch any more White Sox games. So I didn't watch any games the rest of the season. I didn't watch any of the 3-game series where they swept the Red Sox. I didn't watch the first game against the. No, I didn't watch any of the first couple of games against the Angels. But I had seen the replays of the Przinsky incident, which I'm sorry, that's one of my favorite things ever. And so for the 5th game of that season, the White Sox are up 3-1, and I'm watching it, and I'm thinking, and I'm going, I got to watch this. I mean, if they lose, I'll go back to not watching them again. So I watched that game, and they win it. So great, they're going to the World Series. Well, I'm watching it at home. I'm wearing my black bathrobe, and I decide, okay, well now they're winning, but it's because I'm wearing the bathrobe. So all 4 games of the World Series, I had to be wearing the bathrobe. My wife at the time thought I was crazy, but but yeah, and that was a fun team. I was a big Ozzie Guillen fan when he was a player, and as a manager, he was just he began to believe his own press after a while. But those first couple of years, he was great.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics as to why he's still not the manager. I know he would end up in Florida for a little bit with the Miami Marlins, but I don't know. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but like when you take a team to a World Series and you haven't won it in 88 years, to me, I think that, all right, this is our manager for life. Like, this is our guy. Unless he leads us to like 15 straight losing seasons, I would imagine that he would have been there for a longer time than he was. Do you remember what the specifics were behind him leaving the team as quickly as he did?
I don't remember. I think he just. I mean, I remember. I know. I probably knew it at the time, but I honestly don't remember why he left.
Yeah,
I remember why he left to the Marlins, because he was making comments about Venezuela. But
yeah, I remember there was controversy with him leaving Florida. But like, if anyone's watching and knows that, put that in the comments here. So RJ, right around 2005, right around that time, something else cool happened for you in your life. You were on Jeopardy.
I was, yes.
Tell us. All right. So how did you end up on Jeopardy? Like, what's the process to get on the show? And then tell us about the shows that you did.
Well, I think now you can take the test online, and I strongly recommend it because it was so much fun. At the time, this was 2006, and they would send out what they called the brain bus that would go to town after town after town, and they'd give these tests to people. So I went to them all with several, probably over 1,000 people were there taking the test. So there was like a 10-question test, and I must have done okay on that because they said, okay, come back tomorrow and take the 50-question test. Okay, so I took the 50-question test. Then they winnowed us down to about 20 people, and then they had us play simulated games with the actual buzzers and on camera so that they could see whether we looked good on TV. I guess, I don't know, but and I must not have been too untelegenic because they eventually called me back, and so you had to pay your own way. I think you still do. You pay your own way to get out there. And there's no guarantee that you'll get on a game, but I got on the game and managed to win it. So, and then they film a whole week in one day. So you're sitting there watching the first three games. I was watching the first three games, and then I was on the Thursday game. And it was funny because it was a really close nail biter of a game that went right down to the last final Jeopardy question. And when we're coming back, the staff were like, "Wow, that's the best game we've filmed in months." And I'm like, so. Do
you remember what the final Jeopardy category was for your two shows?
Yeah, it was the first show was a Britishism that is a word that it starts with a consonant and has 4 vowels, and it's a homophone of a letter in the English alphabet. So those are the 3 pieces of information, and I was like, yeah, blah, blah. And then I finally started going, okay, homophone of a letter in the English alphabet. So the music's playing, and I go, B, no, C, no. And I finally got to Q, Q-U-E-U-E, and I went, that's it. And I wrote it down, and just as the music was not playing anymore, so so I got lucky on that one. The second one was it was poetry, which I'm not an expert on poetry, but I did happen to know Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner because our high school teacher had us read it. And it was, what poem has the line, "For all averred that I had killed the bird that made the breeze to blow"? And I pulled that out of a corner of my brain. But I was behind, so I wasn't able to close the game. Lost that one by $1.
Is there, to the best of your knowledge, is there any footage of you on the show that we can check out?
There is a website where somebody has collected like all the different games and all the different answers that people gave and everything like that. So if you Google me, that shows up.
Okay.
I have a copy of it in my personal library that a friend of mine made for me. So
nice. You've got some baseball cards you want to show us?
Well, I was going to pop them up when you.
For the roster?
When you announce the roster, but I'm assuming, I got some of my favorite cards here. So we got, this Frank Thomas card. It's just kind of an amusing card because it's not your typical card. I'm assuming I'm assuming Luke Appling, who's my pick for best all-around White Sox player of all time. I mean, Thomas is the best hitter, but I think Appling was probably the best player. But I got my Luke Appling card. So I've got a few here ready. I'll hold up if you have them on the team or not.
Yeah. So we're going to get to that now. We're going to get to the roster reveal for the White Sox. Now, I want to say, and I say this every show, and I'll say it for the remaining 12. And this goes for RJ and everyone watching that's a White Sox fan. If you do not hear your favorite tonight or someone that you feel should be on the show, I purposely have left off players on each team, so all 32 teams, so that next year and the year after, each team has a chance to make a free agent splash. So the example that I've given now for the last couple shows is Cy Young, who has 511 wins, is the all-time, winning pitcher in Major League Baseball. He hasn't been on a roster the last 2 years, and it's not an oversight on my part. It's this December, one of the bottom 8 teams in Team ERA is going to sign Cy Young to anchor their staff in 2022. So if there's anyone on the White Sox tonight that you don't hear, there's a very good chance that he's coming to Chicago in 2022. So before I get all this hate mail, there might be some names we don't hear. But again, it is a mix of all-time greats, some of my favorites, and then a lot of the current players, 30-man roster. So with that being said, before we get to the actual roster reveal, the thing we do right around this time each night is we're going to look at some highlights for the White Sox schedule. As it turns out, the White Sox open their season at home against the Seattle Mariners. On Memorial Day, they'll be traveling to Minnesota to face the Twins. Independence Day, hosting the Cardinals. That should be a good one. On Labor Day, they'll be at Cleveland. And then they're going to finish the season back at home against the Twins once again. So they've got the Twins on Memorial Day and to finish the year at home against the Mariners. At Minnesota, Memorial Day, Independence Day at home against the Cardinals, and then traveling to Cleveland on Labor Day. So the big question is, who's going to be playing for the White Sox on opening day? Manager Jim Fregosi, who, of course, has my phone number, as everyone does. and the reason Fregosi is the manager will make sense here in a minute. Here's the opening day starting lineup for the White Sox. Leading off and playing shortstop, Tim Anderson. Batting second, left fielder, Shoeless Joe Jackson. Banned from baseball from MLB, but he lives forever in the Utopian baseball universe. Here's where it gets interesting. The White Sox won the lottery in the offseason for the rights to center fielder Oscar Charleston.
Ooh.
The White Sox had the first pick in the Negro League Hall of Famer draft that we held live on Facebook Live. Oscar Charleston, who's arguably one of the top 3 players in Negro League history, is batting third and playing center field for the White Sox.
Fantastic.
Batting fourth, Frank Thomas, first baseman. Batting fifth, there he is. Batting fifth, catcher Carlton Fisk.
Oh, I got Fisk here. Here's Pudge.
There we go. Nice.
The only real Pudge. I've never understood why Ivan Rodriguez was called Pudge. The guy had no Pudge on him anywhere. The guy was a rock.
3% body fat.
Yeah.
Maybe it was like just a funny.
And he's a great player. He deserved to have his own nickname. You know.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Batting sixth, third baseman Yoan Moncada. Batting seventh, right fielder Harold Baines.
Harold. Yeah.
Batting eighth, second baseman Eddie Collins.
Good call.
And opening a pitcher this year is going to be Lucas Giolito.
Okay.
He wasn't on the roster last year, but the White Sox struggled a bit pitching, so they're going to bring in Giolito to be the savior, if you will, starting opening day.
Okay.
So now, speaking of the pitching, here's the rotation to start the year. Giolito, Chris Sale, Big Ed Walsh, who basically got the White Sox to the postseason last year. There he is. He was brought up in June, and he was the best pitcher for the White Sox last year. So he's going to make the rotation. He's gonna get that third start against the Mariners.
Walsh did some of his best work second half of the season during his career. So yeah.
And then the White Sox start a series with the Padres, and they're going to start with Mark Burley. And then this is where fans of the team or anyone in general will have a chance to vote on the fifth starter. The 3 choices for the fifth starter are going to be Wilbur Wood, Jack McDowell, and Lamar Hoyt.
So it's so frustrating when I mess up on
I don't have a Hoyt card.
He doesn't have a Hoyt. Well, that's all right. We did not rehearse this beforehand. So Giolito, Sale, Walsh, Burley, and then the last starter is going to be Wilbur Wood, Jack McDowell, or Lamar Hoyt. You guys will be able to vote on that in the next 15 minutes or so. The bullpen, Hoyt Wilhelm, Bobby Thigpen. It feels like a card is coming. That's why I'm pausing.
Well, I've got one at the ready.
Oh, okay. Bobby Jenks, David Robertson, Terry Forster, Addison Reed, and Dustin Hermanson.
I had Kirk Lown and Jerry Staley from the 59 team because that was a good bullpen right there. In case you pulled them out. But.
And again, very, very popular. We'll hear those names at some point. So the final position players for the White Sox are A.J. Pierzynski, Jose Abreu, Nelly Fox, Robin Ventura, Ozzie Guillen, nice, Minnie Minoso, Scott Pasednek, and Carlos Lee. So the name Luke Appling came up earlier.
Yeah.
I will tell you, and again, this isn't, there's no incentive for me to just make this up or massage RJ's ego here. Luke Appling will be the White Sox big free agent signing next year. There's always going to be a handful of players that we don't know where they're going to go, like Cy Young. But some of the obvious names that belong to a certain team, they're just going to come up with that same team. So Luke Appling goes to the White Sox.
Well, he's a North Carolina guy. He's got to get some seasoning in Charlotte before he can come up to the big club.
Exactly. So there you have the lineup of the White Sox. You have some questions and comments for RJ here. So we'll get to those here. These are from Andy and Tim, friends of the show. Andy has a question for you, RJ. How do you feel about Disco Demolition Night?
I suspect that's part of the Disco Demolition Night's probably one of the reasons why my family didn't go to any games at Comiskey Park. It was probably one of those things that scared my parents off.
What year was that?
That was 79. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of it. It was before I became a fan. That's obviously very interesting. Was Vec owning the team at the time?
Bill Vec owned the team. His son Mike Vec was the one who came up with the promotion, and did that with Steve Dahl, who was a big name in Chicago radio at the time. Everybody listened to Steve. We listened to Steve Dahl, and we were out in the boonies. So, so that was one of those things that, in retrospect, I don't think anybody thought it would get out of hand the way it did. But in retrospect, you kind of go, how could it not?
Yeah, exactly. So Andy was with me the night I was talking about Billy Joel. He remembers that expensive parking for Billy Joel. Holy cow. Yeah, it was like $60. And a walk, too. It wasn't like we were right next to the stadium. Timmy says, minor league ball is amazing. Tons of choices. New Jersey, New York. Joey will catch a game when you come east. So Tim is breaking news here. At some point, I'll be moving to Philadelphia area. So Jersey, Philly. I just want to be closer to the Mets. And, yes, we'll definitely have to catch some games, Tim. Andy says, how do you feel, RJ, about the corked bat caper of 1994, Jason Grimsley?
I have no memory of that whatsoever. Like you said, the older I get, the less reliable memory. I totally blotted that out of my mind.
We'll research it too, because to be honest, that doesn't come to mind for me as well. So we'll get you an opinion either way at some point, Andy. Last comment here from Tim St. Clair. Being a Met fan, I'm used to being a second-class fan in New York. Is it the same for the White Sox in Chicago?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Nobody pretends. I mean, the year the White Sox won the World Series, and the year after they won the World Series, which is usually when you have your attendance bump, is the year after you won the World Series. The Cubs still outdrew them. That's the Cubs' town. The Cubs own that town. That's just the way it is. You just get used to it. What blows my mind too is that the White Sox had an 88-year streak of not having won World Series, which was 2 years longer, 1 year on either end than the Red Sox. But because the Red Sox got there first, the White Sox were like, 88 years. Okay. And then when the Cubs won the World Series in 2016, it's funny because there are all these screenshots of TV blunders that people made where it's like, wow, Chicago's going to a World Series for the first time since 1908 or 1945. It's like, guys, we were there just 11 years ago.
I know. That's so weird because, like, as just a baseball fan, it would never happen in a city as small as Milwaukee, but if we had two teams, I would just think that would be the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we got a game every night. The Brewers are on the road, this other team comes in. So I don't understand.
And I think part of it is so there are two things on that. One, the White Sox never had the curse, right? Like the Cubs had the curse of the Billy Goat or whatever you want to call it. The Red Sox had the curse of the Bambino or whatever. Somebody asked Ozzie Guillen when he first took over as the White Sox manager. I think it was the year before they won the World Series, but they asked him, is there a curse on the White Sox the way there is on these other two teams? And Guillen just went, that's no curse, it's just horse bleep teams. Being Ozzie, he didn't say bleep, but you get the idea. But I think that's part of it. It's like White Sox fans just kind of, we lost. Okay, what are you gonna do? And didn't whine about it for. The other thing is, what's the old quote about? There were brave men before Agamemnon, but nobody's heard of them because they lacked a sacred poet, meaning Homer. There was no Homer of the Iliad. Losing baseball teams like the Cubs, had writers who wrote wax poetic about the Cubs. The Red Sox had, Stephen King and, all these other people who wrote about the Red Sox. Brooklyn, of course, everybody, every Brooklyn Dodgers fan ever whined about how they kept losing to the Yankees, etc. Who are the writers who wrote about the White Sox? The ones who were there, if they wrote about the White Sox, it was about the obvious. It's like, okay, well, you guys threw a World Series. You deserve to be in purgatory for a while. So I think that's part of it too. It's like, okay, we've done our time, 88 years. Okay.
I love it. RJ, it's been so fun talking to you and getting to know about your fandom and to hear about your stint on Jeopardy. It's been great to have you. Hopefully we'll have you on again this summer again.
Oh, thanks. This has been great.
And thanks for being a member of the universe. For everyone else watching tonight, our next show is tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Central. It's the San Diego Padres with Mike Cisco. Thanks again to RJ Lesch, and thank you for everyone watching. We'll see you tomorrow at 9.
In their own words, I'm a whale hunter.